Building the back end or building the front end? Which one's easier? I don't know the answer to that direct question, but I do know that building front end applications are easier than ever, especially with the Flutter framework. Today, I'm going to be demonstrating how we can build a fully functional front end application using a back end that we built a few weeks ago in a video I did prior. So, let's see how quickly we can make this application come to life, shall we? Alright, as always, before we even jump into the video, I love to give props when they're due. So there's this guy named Nitish Kumar Singh. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your name, but I'm going to show a picture of your page anyway, so it don't matter. But he was a good resource when I was trying to figure out how to implement GraphQL in Flutter. So as always, if I don't do a good enough job explaining it, you can always check him out. I'll be sure to drop a link to his page in the description. So be sure to follow him, show him some love, all that good stuff. Alright. Today's video is going to basically be a continuation of a video I did a few weeks ago where I built a complete backend using MongoDB, GraphQL, Apollo Server, and Heroku. And the premise was I just create a simple API where a user can create, read, update, and delete different books. And the books pretty much were just simple documents that contained a title, author, and a year. All right, and so that was the backend. Today, we're going to be creating the Flutter application that's going to use that backend. That way, we can perform those same CRUD operations through a Flutter application. That way, you don't have to obviously just use Apollo Server to make these API calls. We're going to be using the app for that specifically. Let's get into it. GraphQL_Flutter version 5.1.2, published 23 days ago. Dart 3 ready. Oh, that's new. I haven't seen that yet. But 662 likes, 140 pub points, 98% popularity, published by Zeno.company. Alright, it says it's a GraphQL client for Flutter, bringing all the features from a modern GraphQL client to one easy to use package. Head over to pub.dev and be sure to get this package. We're going to install it this way as always, so simple as that. Let's get into the code. So first things first, in order to have a Flutter application, we have to create it. So I'm in the terminal right now. I'm going to go to my directory where I keep all my development projects. Can I zoom in on this? I don't think I can zoom in on the terminal. All right, very small text, but just know that we're going to type in create Flutter, and then the name of the application is going to be books demo. So books_demo. Whoops, create not found. Oh, I'm tripping. Flutter create, not create Flutter. We can't create Flutter, it's already been created. All right, Flutter create books demo, let it run its magic. Cool, we have that project now. I'm gonna go ahead and open up VS Code and let's see here. Open the new project we just made, books demo. All right, we're gonna zoom in on this. That's probably good. All right. Now I need to go into the pubspec.yaml and we need to add that Flutter package. So come back over here, go to installing. I'm going to copy this line right here, back to the pubspec.yaml. I can close this terminal out. And I'm going to put it right below Cupertino icons, right there. Then hit save. And that's going to get us the dependency that we need to use the GraphQL class. All right, so we got the application loaded. Right now, this is the empty Flutter project demo. Every empty Flutter project starts like this with this simple, you tap the screen or you push this button this many times thing. But if you ever work with Flutter, you already know what that is. But I'm gonna go ahead and take out all this commenting that we don't need. We really don't need any of it. I'm gonna take out all this stuff. We're pretty much just setting it up to look like the application that we need for today's demonstration. So I'm gonna take out all of this, all of that, and take out that floating action button, take out that comment, and we're gonna replace this center widget with a safe area, just for now. Child text, and it's gonna say books demo. Oops, Add another comma. Then we also need to add the init state variable or init state function in here to our my homepage state. That's pretty much the first call of any stateful widget, and that's where we're going to be implementing some logic later, but we'll add it in there for now. So override init state. Is that it? I think that's right. Yeah, super dot init state. There we go. First step complete. Whoops, let me change that title. I didn't finish that. I want to make it look completely perfect. There we go. Books demo. First step complete. Now it's time to actually jump into creating some of the configuration files that we need for this application. Now we need to create the GraphQLConfig class. This is just a configuration that lets us know which endpoint we're talking to, as well as specifying any caching strategies that we're going to be using. So I'm going to go into the lib folder, create a new file called GraphQLConfig.dart. All right, class GraphQLConfig. Cool. Now we need to create the endpoint, which is going to be an HTTP link, and that's a variable that we get from the GraphQL class. So it's going to be a static variable. I'm going to call static HTTP link equals HTTP link, and that URL is going to be the endpoint from our books demo. So I'm gonna just go to Heroku and open that app and get this endpoint right here. So that's the endpoint for our backend. Paste that right here. Cool. Now we have our HTTP link. Now we need to create the actual client, and that is going to be a GraphQL client. We're going to call it client to query, and that's going to return a GraphQL client. And for the link, it takes in two parameters. We need to specify the link, which is that HTTP link that we made just a few seconds ago. And then the cache is going to be GraphQL cache. That's just the default caching strategy. You can modify this to whatever you want, but we'll just keep that as default now. All right, did I do this right? Gotta add my brackets. There we go. So the configuration is complete. That's all we need right there. Now we need to go ahead and create our book model similar to how we did in the back end. We need to have some type of model that's going to represent the book data. We're going to come into the lib folder, create a new file, book model.dart. All right, call it class book model, and it has the 4 properties as we specified earlier. It's going to be a string of ID. We need a string for the title. Let me make that ID a nullable field because a book may not have an ID yet if it hasn't been created yet. If we're in the process of creation, we only have the title, author, and year. So we'll have a nullable ID for the string, a nullable ID for the book model. We have the title, and we have author, and then we have an int for the year. All right. Then we create our constructor down here. We're going to pass in all these variables. Now, since ID is nullable, we won't need to pass it into the book model, so that won't be required, but everything else will be. So require this dot title, require this dot author, and require this dot year. All right, let's see, something's missing here. Oh, actually, I guess I do gotta pass it in. It's just not required. That should fix it. All right, got our book model done. Then we need to come down here and add a method that's going to convert the document from MongoDB. When we get it from the backend, we need to convert it to a book model within Flutter. So we're just going to make a static method that's going to create a book model, and it's going to be called from map. We're requiring a map to be passed in, and then essentially what we're doing is we're taking that data, converting it into a book model. So the title is going to be map title. This is going off the page a little bit. Can I get it back over here? Got the author, and then we got the year. Also, we cannot forget the ID because it'll start tripping. So remember, IDs in MongoDB have a underscore prefixed on them. So the ID is going to be underscore ID. That is our book model class. That's all we need right here. Now I need to create the GraphQL service. This is going to be where we actually implement our 4 CRUD operations. we're going to be able to create a book, read a list of books, update a book, and delete a book. Same thing as before, right? Go to new file. We're gonna call this one GraphQLService.dart. All right, class GraphQLService. Now we need to pass in our configurations in order to get the client. So call static GraphQLConfig, call it GraphQLConfig equals GraphQLConfig, just like that. And that'll give us our import. Now we need to create the client. So we'll call GraphQLClient equals client, and that's going to be GraphQLConfig.client to query. Now we have our client for our service. First service that we're going to be adding is the one for getting a list of books. So this is going to be a future of list of type book model. And let's add, it already added it for us. Call it GetBooks. And if you remember, we pass in a limit variable because we can specify how many books we want to bring back. So I'm going to do the same thing for this service method right here. Required int limit. All right, wrap this in a try catch just to be safe, because you never know what can happen when you're dealing with the back end. So within the try, we're going to call query result equals client dot query. Query. Now we're going to specify the options. First, or the actual property we pass in is called query options, like that. And we need to await this. And then I need to add the async modifier here so we can await it. All right. So first, let me add the fetch policy, and we're going to say no cache. So basically what we're saying is when we fetch this data, we don't want it cached. Otherwise, if you did, the way it will work is you can update or add a book or whatever you do and then refresh the page, and it will still give you the same data because it was already cached. So I set mine to no cache. Then we need to specify the document. So the document is going to be a GQL variable, and then we're just passing in the string for our query. So we set it up like this, right? If I can, maybe if I just return an empty array right now so we can get this straightened out. Can we get this through? Let me go ahead and throw an exception down here in case things don't work out for us how we want it to. Now this should reformat. Still not gonna reformat? There we go. I guess it's as good as we'll get. All right, so the document is actually going to be the query that we're going to be calling to get our books. So the good thing about working with GraphQL is it's going to be the same across the board. So we can go back to Apollo server and really just copy and paste that query for getting the books. So I did all this in the last video, but essentially this is the query to get the books. I'm going to copy this into right here, just a string, right? Just make sure that you add a backslash or four. I get those two mixed up, but it's this one right here. And you want to do that in front of the $sign. That way it can read it properly when it makes the query. So that is our document. Then we need to specify the variables. And the variables is going to be the same thing right here. I'm just going to copy that. And that's our variables. And I'm going to pass in that limit to this limit right here. Okay, so now we have our result. Now what we need to do is check the result and make sure that there wasn't an error or anything like that. So if result.has exception, we're going to throw an exception here and just pass in that exception. Otherwise, if everything was good, we're then going to check to make sure that the results weren't empty. First, let's convert the result to a list of objects. Let's see, result.data.getBooks. And remember, we're calling GetBooks because when we call this query, it's being nested in this GetBooks key value right here. So put that in there, GetBooks. And I need to add a question mark here just in case it's not there. Then if res equals null or res.is empty. Oh, I really just put a or in programming. That's terrible. All right. If it's null or empty, just return an empty array. Otherwise, then what we need to do is we need to convert the result into a list of book models. So we'll call list, we'll create a variable for the book models, called list book model books equals res.map, and we'll call this book. And what we're going to do is call the book model from map value or variable, and we're just going to pass in that book, which is a map. All right. Then we're going to convert this to a list, and then make sure I add in the map property right here. Let's see, what's the issue? Oh, that's what it is. I misspelled that. It's book model from map. Save that. Then we're just going to return the books. All right. So we have our first service complete. That's how we do GetBooks. We're good there. Now let's go ahead and create our service for deleting a book. I'm going to close out some of these windows up here and make this a little bit bigger. So it's going to be similar to this one, except instead of a query, it's going to be a mutation, but for the most part, very similar. I'm just going to copy and paste this, bring it down here. All right, so when we delete a book, instead of returning a list of book models, we're just going to return a true or false value. So we'll set that to a bool, future bool. Call this DeleteBook. The param that we're passing in is the ID of the book that we want to delete. And as I said earlier, this is a mutation. So we're going to call mutate. And instead of query options, it's going to be passing in mutation options like that. All right. Then we'll come back over here to Apollo server and get the mutation for deleting a book, which is a lot smaller. So we'll just pass this in right here. Remember to add the slash, and then the variable is going to be the ID. So we'll replace that limit and pass in the ID. All right. If there's an exception, throw an exception. Otherwise, we just go ahead and return true. That means everything went as it should. If there's an error, we really would throw an exception, but I'm just going to return false right here. That's our DeleteBook function. All right, now we need to add the method for creating a book. It's going to be very similar to deleting a book, so we'll just copy and paste that. We're going to change the name from DeleteBook to CreateBook. And instead of passing in the ID, we're going to be passing in the title, author, and year for the creation. So required string title, required string author, and required int year, okay? Then we'll come over here, find the mutation for creating a book, add all the fields. We'll copy this, paste this into our document field. All right, make sure you add the slashes as always. And then the variables, we'll copy that too. Put that right in there. And then we'll add the author, the title, whoops, and the year. And then it's going to follow the same flow. If it works, return true. If it doesn't, return false. That's all we need for the CreateBook. Last but not least, we need the method for updating a book. And that's going to be a mutation as well. So, as always, copy and paste. Modify this name to be UpdateBook. And the only thing different is well, not the only thing different, but we need to also pass in the ID because we need to specify which book we're actually updating. Come over here, clear this out. Go to mutation, update book, add all the properties, copy and paste, put that right in here, add our slashes, and we need to do that in both areas over here. Then copy the variables, just like that. And then pass in the ID, author, title, and year. All right. And this, we could make it returnable as well. We'll just keep it all the same. So this is our CRUD operations for our GraphQL service. Now we need to modify the UI to take control of these different services for manipulating our data. All right, so we got the GraphQL service out the way. Now we can come back to the UI and actually take control of this service. So first thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come down here and create this load function. This load function is going to be asynchronous, and this is where we're going to actually fetch the books using the GraphQL service for getting books. So we'll have load here. I need to create a list. I need a variable for the books, call it list book model. And we'll make this nullable simply because we can check to see if it's null, then we'll be showing a loading or circular progress indicator. And then when it's not null, we'll know that we have values, whether they're empty or not. So list book model, call it books, add our import. All right, now within the load, we need to add that to our init state like that. And then within the load, we're going to be calling load whenever we make an API call. So I'm going to set the books variable back to null initially on each load and then fetch the data. So we're always going to set it to null first, then books. I need to create an instance of the GraphQL service, my bad. We'll go up here to GraphQL service, create an instance of the GraphQL service. Now within here, we'll call GraphQL service and call GetBooks, and we'll just pass in a limit of 5. We need to await this because it returns a future. And then we'll call setState to update our UI. All right, we got that. Now we need to modify the widget down here to display the books. So we'll take this const off because it's not going to be constant anymore. And instead what we're going to do is we're going to check first if books equals null, then we're going to return center with a circular progress indicator. All right, so if books is null, which it will be on page load, or when it first makes the call to load again, we'll be showing the circular progress indicator. If not, we'll do another check to see if books is empty. Now, if books is empty, we'll display a message that just says no books. So if books is empty, I'm gonna close this out. If books is empty, return center, child, text, no books. And we'll need to add the exclamation mark to books because it's a nullable object. Now finally, if books aren't null and books is not empty, then we'll return a list view builder. All right, and this is going to allow us to lazy load each document from our service. So the item builder, which is going to be context and index. We're going to return a list tile. We need to specify the item count, which is going to be books.length. And then the list tile is going to be, we'll have a leading widget of just an icon of a book. So we'll say icons book. Then we have the title, which is going to be the books. Well, the title of the list tile is going to be the title of the book and the author. And so we can write it like this, books at index, specify the title, and then we'll say by author. And we'll write that like this. And then we have the subtitle, which is going to be the year it was released. So we'll just have the year, take that off, and we'll put released in front. All right, so as you can see, I saved it so it built it again, but right now it's just stuck in null because books never got loaded because the load function is outside of the build method. So we'll need to do a hot restart to get this to work. So hit that. All right, we got our books. Right now there's one book in the collection, which is Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell, released 2008. Very good book, by the way, you should check it out. Now, in order to delete a book, very simple, we'll add a trash can icon to this list tile that we'll click. That's going to delete the book from the collection. So we'll go back into our list tile, go to the trailing property, add an icon button, and pass in an icon of delete, and then specify the onPress method, and that is going to be where we call our delete function. I was just throwing an issue. We'll make it pretty. We'll do this color, colors.red, and make sure that it's const. All right, and then here we're just going to call that GraphQL service again. This time we'll specify DeleteBook, and it's going to be the ID of the book that we are selecting to delete. It's nullable as I mentioned earlier, so we'll need to add an exclamation mark here. And then after we delete it, we'll then need to call the load function again to now fetch the current collection of books. So we'll just call load again right here. All right, so if everything works how it should, we should be able to hit this delete button, and then the message no book should be displayed in the center. So I'm gonna refresh this real quick to make sure that we have everything working. All right, cool. Book was deleted, says no books. We're good. Now for our create book, we're gonna have to add a little bit more logic. Let me go ahead and add this final modifier real quick because since we're never gonna change that service, just to get rid of some of these squiggly lines. All right, so for creating a book, we need to add some text editing controllers to capture user input to specify what is the title, what is the author, and what is the year of the book. So go back up here to variables. We'll create some text editing controllers. I know I'm spelling that wrong somehow. Editing controller. All right. Call this one title controller. Editing controller. Man, we can make these final as well. All right. We've got 3 of them. We got one for title, one for author, and then one for the year, of course. All right, so we have our controllers. Now what we want to do is we want to come down here, and what I'm gonna do is I'm going to put I'm going to create some input fields that are going to go below the list view builder, and that is going to be where you'll actually see the text fields. So I'm going to just take all this logic right here, wrap it in an expanded widget, put it inside a column. Actually, am I doing that right? Or is it a column and an expanded? Yeah, I'm tripping. I was about to mess that up, about to get a big error. All right, we have a column and then an expanded widget. And the child is gonna be all that logic that we had before. And then under the expanded widget is where we will put the text fields. But we're gonna put it in a row because we're gonna have our text fields and then a send button to the right of it. So we'll have a row, another expanded widget. That child is going to be a column of all the text fields. So we'll create our first text field. We're just going to copy and paste most of these. First text field, we have the controller. We'll put the title controller. All right, got our first text field. I'm going to add some padding to that. Let me just use this, wrap it in padding. We'll do 16. Whoops. All right, got a little padding there. That's good. Then we're going to, like I said, just copy and paste this. Actually, I want to add an input decoration. I'm going to add an input decoration that's going to tell the user what goes into this input field. So input decoration, hint, text, and that's going to say title. And that's a constant. Oops. All right, so now as you can see, we have title right here. Oops. So I'm gonna copy and paste this 3 times for the other 2 properties. All right, and we have title, author, and year, just like that. All right, we got title, author, year right here. Now, since this was in a row, we're going to have to the right of that expanded widget, we're going to have an icon button, and we'll just have an empty function call for right now. I want to specify the icon first. That icon is going to be icon.send. Oops. So within here, what we want to do is we want to call that GraphQL service again, and we want to call the CreateBook service method, and we're going to pass in the values from our text editing controllers. So GraphQL service, CreateBook. The title is going to be text editing controller. Oh no, not text editing controller. Title controller. .text. Same thing for author, and same thing for year. Now the year, we're going to need to convert it to a int because our service takes in an int variable for the year. So we can call int.parse yearController.text. All right. And then similar to the delete, once that's done, let's make sure that we await this and make it async. Once that's done, then we'll call that load again to fetch the most recent documents. All right, so let's go ahead and create a book right now. Let me just go ahead and refresh this just to make sure everything's on the up and up. All right, let's see, a book, start with Y. I forgot bruh's name. I'm going to call him John Doe for now. This is a very good book though. And I have no idea when that book was released, so we'll just say 2010. So we'll go ahead and hit send. All right, got our book in here, Start With Why by John Doe, released in 2010. Just for the heck of it, we'll add another one. Just like that. We'll add 2 more. All right, and then we'll delete some, why not? Oops, cool. All right, that's the CreateBook function. Last but not least, we need to add our method for updating a book. So before we get started with that, I'm gonna add another method in here that's going to clear our text fields, because as you can see, after we submitted a book, the text fields were still there. So I'm just going to create a helper function called clear, and all that's going to do is clear our text editing controllers. And I'm gonna add this into our CreateBook. All right, so for the update, what I'm thinking is we'll have a Boolean flag that's going to represent whether we're in editing mode or creation mode. And based on what mode we're in, we'll display a pencil icon for editing or a plus icon for creation. That way, when we're in editing mode, we can tap on one of the list tiles and those fields, the text fields will be populated with the information from that book we just selected. And then when we hit submit, it'll just update those values. If we're not in editing mode and we're in creation, it's just going to create a new document. So we'll come up here, create a Boolean flag called isEditMode. It's going to start off as false because we're going to be default in creation mode. And then I'm going to create a new icon button that's going to go in front of this expanded widget in the row at the bottom. And what this is going to do is we're just going to toggle the isEdit value. So isEditMode equals the negation of isEditMode, like that. And then we're just going to call setState to update our value. And then the icon that we'll see, if isEditMode, then we're going to see the icon for edit. If not, we'll see the icon for creating. All right, let's see, is edit mode? Oh, not icons anymore. All right, so got that pencil right there. So if we click this, all right, we're now in edit mode, we're in creation mode. Edit mode, creation mode, okay? Then we'll come down here, and within the same logic for creating a book, we're just gonna do an if-else statement. Well, first, we actually need to populate the fields when we tap on a list tile. So we'll add a onTap callback to our list tile, if that's right. Yeah, that's right. Okay. And we need to create a variable for a selected book. So it's going to be nullable because we may not have a selected book yet. Okay. Now what happens is when we tap on the book in our onTap of the list tile, that selected book, I can't say that, selected book is going to become that book that we selected. All right, now we need to update our text fields to whatever book we just selected. So the title controller dot text is going to equal that selected book title, and we'll add an exclamation point here. The auth controller dot text is going to equal the selected book author, and the year controller dot text is going to equal the selected book year. And remember, this is a int, so convert it to a string, which is called toString. All right, I believe that's all that we need to do there. Then if we come down here, let's try this out real quick. Let's see, let's create a new book. I'm gonna refresh this. New book, setting boundaries, and we'll just act like Martha Stewart made this one. I know she did not write this book, but for some reason, her name came to mind. I have no idea why. And we'll say it was released in 2020, all right? So we got that book. I'm gonna delete this one just to get it out the way. All right, now, if we tap on this book, our text fields are populated to that book we just selected. Same with this one up here, all right? Perfect. Now what we need to do is come down here and just perform a simple if-else statement. If is edit mode. If is edit mode, then what we want to do is call the UpdateBook API call. All right. So we'll call UpdateBook, and the ID that we're passing in is the ID of that selected book. And if not edit mode, then we're actually creating one. Just like that. Nothing else has to change. Okay? And the ID is nullable, so make sure you add that exclamation point. All right, let's try this out now. If we select setting boundaries by Martha Stewart, which was released in 2020, if we change this to setting boundaries, but let's make it so that I'm the author this time. And let's say this book was released when I was born. Now, if we hit edit mode and then we hit send, the book now gets updated to setting boundaries by Trey, released in 1992. Okay? If we hit this again, but then change it to creation mode, we're going to create a new book. Okay? But just so you know, the update book and create book methods, actually all our CRUD methods are working how they need to. And yeah, that's it in a nutshell. All right, and just like that, we got our front end Flutter application up and running in no time based off of the back end that we created a few weeks ago. All right, as always, if this video was helpful, please like, comment, subscribe. Let me know in the comments if I did a good job explaining how to use the GraphQL Flutter package, and just give me any feedback in general so I know how to improve and get better. All right, with that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up. This is Trey signing off. I will talk to you later.